morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Meetinghouse of Provincetown, where we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and where we support each other on our spiritual search for truth and meaning. Welcome to those of you in the room, and welcome also to those of you joining us from home via YouTube. My name is Rev Kate Wilkinson, and I am so glad that you are here with us this morning. Before we begin our service, I just want to remind you that our annual meeting is coming up on Sunday, December 5th. And to ensure that everyone can participate, we will be holding the meeting on Zoom at 2 o'clock. That gives people who are worshiping in person a chance to have lunch and get back home. And we do need a quorum in order to vote. So please save that afternoon on your calendars if you can. And committee chairs, if you haven't gotten your reports into April yet, please do so. It's really a great opportunity for the congregation to learn about all of the hard work that goes on behind the scenes. So many people make this meeting house run and help us to live out our covenant in the world. Let's take a moment now to affirm our meeting house covenant. And since we don't have a printed order of service this morning, we'll do it call and response style, where I say a line and then you say it back to me. Love is the spirit of this meeting house.
Love is the spirit of this meeting house.
This is our great covenant.
This is our great covenant.
To dwell together in peace.
To dwell together in peace.
To seek the truth in love.
To seek the truth in love.
And to help one another.
And to help one another.
And now I invite Ellen Anthony to light our chalice this morning. As we light our chalice here in the Meeting House Sanctuary, I invite those of you watching from home to light a candle wherever you are. In that way we can feel connected even while we are apart.
Connected. Not connected. Connected Through the Web of Life by Jennifer Grayson. We light this chalice, symbol of our purpose to bring more love and justice into the world. We light this chalice, knowing our congregation as a church dispersed across communities, not bound by walls, but connected through the web of life.
Thank you. Please join me now in a spirit of prayer and meditation. If you have a prayer on your heart this morning, a joy or a concern or sorrow, you are invited to light a candle at any time during the service, at the table to the right of the pulpit, or at home. And there is a journal over here to record your thoughts and prayers. Our prayer this morning is by Susan McGinn. After our prayer, we'll share a few moments of silence together, which the prayer sort of invites us to. As we settle into our seat, all of our life comes down with us, like an extended slinky retracting into a single cylinder. Back you snap into this body and breath, where each day is born and done. Familiar in this cushion, familiar in this ache. Silence comes quick, and wraps us up together, claiming all of our wounds as one, fighting back all that could seduce us to stand and walk away. Silence is bigger than wiggling chairs, calling birds, and unsatisfied children. Within this pulsing hum, our soft face is recognized, held close, held here, held together.
The Guest House by Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Now is the time in our service where we take a collection for the ongoing support of this meeting house and our shared ministry. As we enjoy a musical reflection by Brenda, our ushers will make their way to you. And those of you watching at home, we welcome your donations through PayPal or Venmo. You can find that information on our website, UUMH.org. On and off site, your gifts will now be gratefully received. Thank you, Brenda. This week, I've been reading the book, Welcoming the Unwelcome, Wholehearted Living in a Broken-Hearted World by Pema Chodron. I picked it up because we've been talking a lot about what it means to be wholehearted lately. And it feels particularly challenging to be wholehearted when you are simultaneously broken-hearted. And the world is certainly a broken-hearted place these days, isn't it? The book is all about a concept in Mahayana Buddhism called bodhicitta. In Sanskrit, bodhi means awake, and citta means heart or mind. So the teachings in this book are about how to have an awakened heart, how to awaken compassion. Pema Chodron says, the Buddha taught that all of us, at our essence, are good and loving. Because of this basic goodness, we naturally want to be there for others, especially those who are closest to us and those who are in the greatest need. We want to do what we can to alleviate the fear, anger, and painful groundlessness that so many of us are experiencing these days. But what often happens, she says, when we try to help, is that we find our own confusion and habitual tendencies getting in the way. Has this happened to any of you? Let me give you a synopsis of the first chapter of the book in my own words. We try to be so good and helpful, but other people are so annoying that it's really hard. Here's an example. You go the extra mile for a friend or a family member who is sick. You do their shopping, you pick up their mail, you make them a home-cooked meal. They thank you. But as you are leaving, they also mention that the brand of oatmeal that you got them is not the brand of oatmeal that they like. All of a sudden, what felt like a good deed now feels like an enormous inconvenience, and what you thought was motivating you to do the good deed, helping a friend in their hour of need, now turns out not to be the full story. Because now that they have offered a tiny bit of criticism or feedback, you realize that what you really wanted was for them to be grateful to you. And it feels like they aren't quite grateful enough. And now you are annoyed. The truth is, most of us are motivated to do good by several different things. Some of it is selfless, goodness, compassion, but a lot of it isn't. Some people try to be helpful because they feel bad about themselves, Chodron says. They hope to look good in the eyes of the world. Now don't get me wrong, these people accomplish a lot. They do a lot of good. These are our friends who we wish we were more like. Some people work hard day and night, Chodron says, in the field of helping others. But their strongest motivation is to stay busy so that they can avoid feeling their own pain. These are the workaholics. We love and admire these people. Some are motivated by feelings of obligation or guilt. Some are even motivated by resentment. Do you know any martyrs? Any martyrs in your family? If we take a good look within, we will probably discover that motivations like these are mixed with our genuine desire to help others, children writes. We are these people. But we shouldn't beat ourselves up about this, she says, because all these motivations come from our natural human tendency to look for happiness and to protect ourselves from pain. So we are superhuman. Not superhuman like superhero, but superhuman in like extra human, really imperfect. Even in our do-gooding, we are really imperfect. That's the bad news. The good news is that we don't actually have to be perfect in order to have an awakened heart, in order to access bodhicitta. We don't have to stop thinking the annoyed thought, stop having the gut reaction that we instinctively have. We just have to be aware that we are annoyed, aware that our immediate reaction doesn't have to be the last reaction, aware that we have some choices as to how much energy we give to that initial annoyance, that initial reaction. To fulfill the commitment of bodhicitta, Chodron says, we will need to learn everything there is to learn about our own heart and mind. And you know what? As we discover what our mixed motivations are, as we increase that self-awareness, we might even find that some of our gut reactions shift a little. We might get a little less annoyed by the people around us. We might feel that compassion that we get to eventually coming into the picture a bit sooner. And as we put away some of the stories that we've been telling ourselves about our emotions, we might end up being more present to the situation at hand and to one another than we previously were able to be. And that's kind of the point of all of this. Now here's some more bad news. This is from the teacher's teacher, so Pema Chodron's mentor, Trungpa Rinpoche. He says that the way to arouse bodhicitta is to begin with a broken heart. I know, it stinks. But he has a point. Protecting ourselves from pain, our own and that of others, has never worked. Shielding ourselves from the vulnerability of all living beings, including our own, cuts us off from the full experience of life. Because when we are so worried about avoiding discomfort, we begin to feel disconnected from and even threatened by others. We who are white feel guilty about racism, for example. Feels bad to talk about, feels excruciatingly sad to face. To hear stories of a black man being hunted down while he's out for a jog. And so we make up reasons why it isn't really as bad as it is. That person stole something from a store. He was selling cigarettes illegally. We can't blame an entire policing system because of a few bad apples. When we tell these stories, we are insulating ourselves from the sadness and the grief. And in doing so, we are separating ourselves from our siblings of color. We are disconnecting from them and their pain. I've been doing a lot of hospital and nursing home and rehab facility visits this month. I have to say, it's been very sad to see beloved members who were once so active, so full of life and energy, now confined to a small room or to a bed, with no control over their own lives. It's a really stark reminder about the challenges of aging, challenges that will face all of us in the years ahead. But the temptation is to distance ourselves from that scene, to pretend that that could never be us, to keep the visits short so that the smells don't seep into our clothes, to not think for too long about how broken our healthcare system is. But when we generate bodhicitta, Children says, we go against the grain of this tendency. Instead of shying away, we arouse the bravery to take a direct look at ourselves and the world. We can touch in with bodhicitta, she says, by simply allowing ourselves to experience our own raw feelings without getting sucked into our thoughts and stories about them. Begin with a broken heart. Now, it's a huge bummer that enlightenment is not the feel-good state that many of us thought it would be, right? I mean, didn't you think that as an enlightened spiritual being, you would walk around with a peaceful, content happiness all the time? I mean, if not constant euphoric joy, then at least the absence of angst, right? Turns out it's not so. When I'm embarrassed, Children says, when I feel like a loser, when I feel that something is fundamentally wrong with me, bodhicitta is present in those emotions. When I've made a big mistake, when I failed to do what I set out to do, when I feel the sting of having let everyone down, at such times I have the option to tap into the awakened heart of bodhicitta. If I really connect with my jealousy, my anger, or my prejudice, Children says, I find myself standing in the shoes of humanity. And from this place, the place of standing in the shoes of humanity, from this place, we actually stand a chance of alleviating some of the suffering of the world. Am I the only one who is surprised that Pema Chodron, the world-renowned Buddhist teacher, author of dozens of books, mentor to millions, winner of the Global Bhikkhuni Award, Pema Chodron nun, sometimes feels like a loser? It's really disappointing. But also, oddly comforting. I mean, I think many of us feel like losers from time to time, and it's kind of good to know that that does not exempt us from spiritual growth. If even the best spiritual teachers feel like that, then there is some hope for us too, right? You know, I started and stopped writing the sermon 1,000 times this week. I kept thinking, come on, Kate, aren't we dealing with enough right now? Don't we have enough on our plates? Everyone you know is exhausted. Is this really the moment to go for spiritual depth? Do you really need to challenge people right now? I saw this great meme last month that said, the challenge I'm doing this month is called October. And it's just where I try to get through every day in October. That felt really spot on to me. In my heart of hearts, I do not want to welcome the unwelcome right now. I want the unwelcome to go away. But really, when I am being most honest with myself about how this spirituality stuff works, when I'm being most honest with you about how this being on a journey works, most of the enlightenment comes not when things are easy, but when things are hard. And this feels like a really hard time right now. And so this might just be a time when we can deepen our self-knowledge, can create new neural pathways, open our hearts. We might be able to do that now more than at any other time, even though we are tired, even though our fuses are shorter than they usually are, even though we may feel like an empty well. This is when we are most tempted to reach for our old crutches. This is when we are most tempted to distance ourselves from others and their pain. But it's also a time when we can ask ourselves, what else? What else could I do instead? When unwelcome events occur in our lives, Pema Chodron says, it's hard to break out of our habitual patterns. We tend to get completely hooked and proceed blindly without any insight, which just perpetuates our habit. At other times, we're tempted to go after something that we know will be bad for us, unhealthy behavior, an unhealthy relationship, unhealthy food. And the pull of our propensity is very strong. During any of these challenging situations, she says, it's easy to think we're doomed to repeat our patterns until the end of time. However, we can look at this from a much more optimistic view, she says. If our aim is to wake up for the benefit of ourselves and other living beings, then it's necessary for us to change. These challenging times give us the greatest opportunity for change. Every time we catch ourselves going down the rut of habitual reaction, we have a chance to interrupt the momentum and discover a whole new direction and depth to our life. Trungpa Rinpoche said, any experience can be made into a further blockage or can become a way of freeing ourselves. Any experience can be made into a further blockage or can become a way of freeing ourselves. Here's some closing wisdom from Welcoming the Unwelcome, Wholehearted Living in a Broken-Hearted World. The awakened heart begins with the wish to be free from whatever gets in the way of our helping others. We long to be free from the confused thoughts and habitual patterns that cover up our basic goodness, so that we can be less reactive, less fearful, and less stuck in our own old ways. We understand that to whatever degree we can get beyond our neuroses and habits, we can be more available for our family members, for our larger community, and for the strangers that we meet. We may still be going through strong feelings and reactions on the inside, but if we know how to work with these emotions without following into our usual ruts, then we can be right there for others. And even if there's nothing dramatic that we can do to help, other people will feel our support, which actually helps a lot. We are at a time when old systems and ideas are being questioned and falling apart, Children writes. And there is a great opportunity for something fresh to emerge. I have no idea what that will look like, and no preconceptions about how things should turn out, she says. But I do have a strong sense that the time we live in is a fertile ground for training and being open-minded and open-hearted. If we can learn to hold this falling apartness without polarizing and without becoming fundamentalist, then whatever we do today will have a positive effect on the future. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Amen, and blessed be. It has become our practice to pose a question based on the theme of the service each week. It can be a conversation starter out on the lawn or a topic of dinner conversation tonight. And if you would like to delve deeper into this question, you can join us on Zoom on Tuesday at 5. Let us know if you need the link to our online coffee hour. And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't decide on the question this week. There were two that stood out to me and I just couldn't pick between the two. So I'm just going to share both with you this morning and we'll see which one sticks for you. The first one is, what motivates you to help others alongside your compassion? What motivates you to help others alongside your compassion? And the second one is, what is one way that you've distanced yourself from the pain of others during this pandemic? What is one way that you have distanced yourself from the pain of others during this pandemic? Just a couple of light queries for the soul this week. Pema Children says we have to get to know ourselves, right? I invite you to begin thinking about these things as we listen to our postlude. When Brenda is done playing, I invite you to exit row by row, starting from the back of the sanctuary. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for joining us this morning from home. Go in peace.